What is going on, guys? I am back today to talk about a new release film that I have been very excited to watch. If you guys have been following me on my channel for a while now, this year I did a deep dive into Miyazaki's films. I am a huge fan of Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, and I hadn't seen much of his work, and this year I wanted to watch a lot of his films, so I did reviews for Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, and I think a couple more, but I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. And I've seen Spirited Away, Ponyo, a few of his films, and I'm a big fan of Miyazaki as a creator. I think his worlds are always so immersive and beautiful. He writes great characters. I love the mixture of fantasy and reality. I think the two bleed together so perfectly, and he always has some kind of underlying theme in his films. And when he made his last movie, The Wind Rises, which I think was released in like 2013, somewhere in that range. It's been a long time since he's made a movie. The Boy and the Heron, which is the film I'm going to be discussing today, was announced as his final project. And I know after the movie has been released and he's done some interviews, he's not 100% set on being retired. But I know this was a movie that had a lot of hype around it. This was only my second Miyazaki film in the theater. I saw Ponyo when it was released. And so I was ecstatic to watch this film, and I'm very excited to talk to you about The Boy and the Heron today. The Boy and the Heron is directed by Hayao Miyazaki. While the Second World War rages, the teenage Mahito, haunted by his mother's tragic death, is relocated from Tokyo to the serene rural home of his new stepmother Natsuko, a woman who bears a striking resemblance to the boy's mother. As he tries to adjust, this strange new world grows even stranger, following the appearance of a persistent gray heron who perplexes and bedevils Mahito, dubbing him the long-awaited one. So, as I said, I was very, very excited to watch this movie, and I am happy to say this movie is incredible. It's arguably one of my favorite films in Miyazaki's catalog. This feels like a culmination of everything that he's been working on his entire career. There are themes pulled from every one of his movies that I've watched, and all kind of culminating into this really powerful message. And it's one of his most surreal and abstract films. I feel like this is very similar to Spirited Away, where you're kind of thrusted into this fantasy world, and there's so much symbolism layered in these characters, and I'm very excited to talk about it with you today. So as the plot description states, we're introduced to Mahito at the beginning of the film, and his father wakes him up in the middle of the night and says something's happened, the hospital is burning down, and he immediately knows my mother's in this hospital, and he gets his clothes on and he starts running towards the hospital, and there's this incredible sequence of him running through this crowd of people with these flames, and it kind of, the imagery repeats throughout the film, and it's just so beautifully animated. And we find out that his mother has passed away in this fire. And so we jump forward in time. His father works for this factory that is making planes for the military, and they decide to move out of Tokyo into the countryside. We find out his father is dating a new woman, Natsuko. He gets there. You can tell she's very inviting, and she wants to be close to the boy, but it's like she knows what he's going through. And so there's a bit of a separation there. And the first 25-30 minutes of the movie, this heron keeps showing up in the background, and we're not 100% sure what it is, but most of the first 30 minutes of the film is the boy reflecting on the tragedy that he has experienced, and we really get to, in real time, see him experience nightmares and experience trauma going to a new school where he's being horribly bullied. Then at about the 30-minute mark, we get kicked into the Miyazaki fantasy world, where the heron starts to talk to him. They go into the forest and into this tower building that has been abandoned. It's been blocked up, but the door is open and the heron is inside. And our lead character, Mahito, is transported into this other world where his stepmother has disappeared to, and he's trying to rescue his stepmother with this heron who he can't 100% trust. The film is the two of them navigating this fantasy world, trying to find his stepmother. So as I said, I thought this movie was brilliant. I honestly was immersed from the very first frame and just so curious as to what the direction is going to be. And as I said, I feel like this movie is a culmination of ideas that Miyazaki has had for a long time. I could feel elements of Howl's Moving Castle here. I felt the quiet, more nuanced moments of My Neighbor Totoro. And it was amazing to see a film that kind of had all the elements of what makes Miyazaki a great filmmaker involved in it. For starters, I want to talk about the animation. Breathtaking. There's really not another word for it. To go to the theater and see a 2D animated hand-drawn film anymore is few and far between, and just the images in this pop, the color is just absolutely amazing. It's really interesting how subdued the film starts. You get some really cool visual sequences, but as the fantasy elements are slowly introduced, it almost takes a minute for your brain to just register how incredible the animation is. The voice acting in this, I actually saw the dubbed version. I've seen dubbed and subbed versions, and one of the things that I will say is incredible about Ghibli is that when they do dubbed versions, they're always great. I haven't seen a dubbed version yet that I haven't enjoyed. There are so many amazing voice actors in this, but I really want to talk about Rob Pattinson. He is transformative in his vocal performance. I don't know how much voice acting he's done in the past, but he is amazing in this film. There's a ton of people that show up in this. Christian Bale plays the father. Willem Dafoe's in this. Mark Hamill, Florence Pugh. There are a ton of amazing actors and actresses in this film that do an incredible job dedicating themselves to the material. They live and breathe these roles, and it's just amazing to watch. And one of the things I love about this movie is the amount thematically that it explores. I think the big takeaway from this movie that I had, and in the most simplistic terms, is that Miyazaki is looking at these worlds that he creates, and they're fantastical and they're exciting and they're fun. But in this movie, it's really like things get bad in the world, things can get really terrible, and there is no pursuit of perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. And the end of this film is really life hands you a lot of shit and you have to make the best of it. And I think that Miyazaki has kind of culminated that throughout his work. Obviously, there's a lot of reflection on the war in this film. He has done a lot of movies that have shown the aftermath of World War II and what has happened in Japan. And obviously, you know, with the effects of World War II, a lot of innocent people were killed in the bombings in Japan. And we see in this the struggle for people to just get the food they want or to be able to acquire cigarettes or just any of those things. And so we see the aftermath of the war, but you also see something simple like a child losing their mother, and we get this relationship dynamic of a child with a new person who is trying to be a parent, the child overcoming that trauma and having to try to live in a new place, isolated from the people that they know and the friends that they have made previously. And there's a growing pains there, and you can feel the discomfort in that relationship. And it's conveyed in a very brilliant way. There's also this really interesting power dynamic explored toward the third act that feels very indicative of countries that go to war and how they view the place that they live as this ideal perfection, or like that it operates better than everywhere else, when in turn it's not really, it's just the same as everywhere else. And like I said, the whole idea of making the best of it. And I think that it really packs a powerful emotional punch. And despite that, I mean, you can really see Miyazaki has talked before. I know in My Neighbor Totoro, he really used the relationship with his mother. His mother was sick for a very long time. He loves his mother dearly. And I think if you don't take any of those larger things away from the film, it's a film about a guy who really loves his mom and misses his mom. And I think at the most surface level, that's very beautiful. And the fact that he was able to put so much underneath that, exploring all of those different ideas, and even more that I probably didn't unpack in one single film, just shows how talented of a director that Miyazaki is. My jaw was on the floor through most of this movie. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. And I think what's interesting is it starts off with the pace of Totoro, very slice of life, and then really kicks into that Howl's Moving Castle fantasy, over the top, really absurd tone that we know from Miyazaki. And I think being able to be that subdued and live with that character for so long and feel feel his pain takes a really great director to have that type of patience before pushing you into the fantastical world. And I just have not stopped thinking about this movie since I left the theater. I'm already ready to watch it again. If you're a fan of animation whatsoever, or you love Miyazaki's work, this is a must watch. It's one of the best movies of the year. So have you seen The Boy and the Heron? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredible. I can't state that enough. I think it is amazing. Please watch this on a big screen if you get the opportunity. It is mind-blowing. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.